10 a.m., a billionaire faced ruin. Then a janitor revealed an incredible hidden mistake. The morning sun poured into the sleek glass office of Vortex Technologies, illuminating the vibrant energy of Silicon Valley. Employees buzzed with excitement, but at the helm, Travis Montgomery, a self-made billionaire, felt an oppressive weight on his shoulders. His heart raced with an unfamiliar dread, sending electric jolts of anxiety through him. Just days ago, his company's stock had plummeted, and investor confidence was rapidly eroding. Today would be crucial. Pacing in his corner office, shadows danced across his brow as he rehearsed the speech that was supposed to inspire hope. He questioned everything he stood for, the values that had catapulted him from nothing to a titan in tech. Had he sacrificed too much? Was his relentless pursuit of success blinding him to the unraveling lives beneath his empire? He looked out at his employees, some radiant with ambition, others terrified of the impending doom their jobs faced. As he took a deep breath, ready to step into the fray, a sharp, anxious voice floated through the air from the conference room. "Glitches in the new rollout could tank us." Panic echoed in frantic whispers, igniting fire in Travis's gut. He cast his mind back to the headlines that had flashed across every screen. Are Vortex stocks facing catastrophe? With each passing moment, his resolve weakened. Meanwhile, in the back office, Daniel Reyes pushed his cleaning cart through the pristine halls. He had been juggling 2 jobs, scrubbing floors by day and delivering pizzas by night, determined to make ends meet for his family. He'd sensed the tension simmering in this tech palace, but had learned to keep his head down and work diligently. Today, however, felt different. Something profound lurked in the air, a storm brewing that could disrupt everything. As Daniel mopped the conference room floor, snippets of discussions reached his ears. Scandals, investor faith slipping, a disastrous launch. Each word felt like daggers, piercing through his soul. His own life spiraled around the unyielding grind, but he couldn't ignore the impactful effects of Vortex's downfall. Before he could process his rising concern, something caught his eye on the screen of a discarded tablet. A critical bug in the software, a glitch that he instinctively understood could save the company. A moment of hesitation clawed at him. Could he step forward? Voices told him he didn't belong. But what if his family suffered from a mistake attached to wealth and privilege? Suddenly, the weight of his determination ignited a fire within him. The memories of his past as a skilled programmer surged forth. It was a risk, approaching Travis and his elite team, but the thought of not acting gnawed at him, urging him to silence the self-doubt. In a split second, Travis entered the conference room, battling his own demons, unwilling to let his past dictate his future.
"What are we missing?" he implored, eyes scanning the anxious faces of his team. As Daniel tentatively raised his hand, a sharp-eyed intern scoffed. What could a janitor possibly contribute? Each word triggered a fury in Daniel, his heart pounding with indignation. He sensed the pivotal moment, the crossroads where privilege and struggle converged. "Perhaps I can help," he managed, the words barely escaping his throat. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue." Tension coursed through the room like electricity. Travis's eyes narrowed, unease transforming into a whirlwind of thoughts. What if Daniel was right? Could he risk everything he had built on a janitor's suggestion? In that charged silence, Daniel stood firm, his breath quickening as the stakes escalated. Their eyes locked in a moment suspended, both men wrestling with their identities, one framed by success tinted with privilege, the other cloaked in uncertainty, yet cradled by the grit of hard work. Could they bridge the chasm between them? Travis felt a decision pressing upon him, one that could reshape his future and challenge everything he thought about success. Fear knotted in his chest as uncertainty loomed, an intangible doubt that threatened to unravel his world. The silence was heavy, filled with an almost unbearable gravity as Daniel braced himself for a response. Travis's brow furrowed deeper, caught between his upbringing in a starkly different world and the undeniable tension in the air. This was uncharted territory, an unsettling place where every decision weighed 1,000 pounds. Something about Daniel's resolve flickered like a beacon amidst the chaos. "What do you mean, help?" Travis managed to ask, still skeptical, but aware that hope sometimes sprouted from the most unexpected seeds. Daniel hesitated for a fleeting moment. It was as if time stood still, amplifying the significance of his words. This wasn't just a career-defining moment for Travis. It was life-altering for Daniel, too. "I saw a glitch in the system. It might be causing the errors you're experiencing," Daniel finally said, his voice steady now, channels of determination coursing through him. "I used to work as a programmer. I think I can help you find it." Around the room, murmurs of disbelief turned into murmurs of interest. It was as if the collective energy pivoted slightly, leaning towards this unassuming janitor.
People who once held the power of the company in their hands were now curious, perhaps even desperate, for insight from someone they usually overlooked. Yet the air was thick with condescension, a reality Daniel was all too familiar with. Travis studied him, the intrigue brewing with every passing second. Who was this man? A janitor by circumstance, not by skill. "We don't have time to waste. If you think you can fix something in the code, then we need to act fast. Are you sure of this, Daniel?" His words, although probed with urgency, sought a deeper layer of conviction. "Absolutely." Daniel's heart raced. The weight of the moment hung heavily, and yet courage blossomed within him. This wasn't only about fixing a bug anymore. It was a chance to prove himself, a chance to rewrite his narrative in the script of Vortex's unfolding drama. "Fine," Travis relented, his voice firm yet inquisitive. "Bring what you found to the developers, now." As the meeting disbanded with the talk of urgency and quick solutions, Daniel followed Travis out of the conference room, feeling the shifting tides of destiny. His mind stirred with fervent energy, grounding him in the new opportunity that lay ahead. Months of pushing brooms had amassed into this singular moment of potential change, and it was exhilarating yet terrifying. Travis led the way through the maze of glass offices, each step drumming up an amalgam of emotions. The once stifling walls of hierarchy began to feel permeable, like the invisible barriers of class were thinning. But would Travis allow himself to see beyond the janitor's uniform to the brilliance Daniel had concealed? In an instant, Travis's thoughts veered back to his own journey. He remembered the countless times people doubted him, just a young kid with a wild dream and mismatched shoes, striving to wrest power from the grasp of giants. Did he not just have a flicker of empathy for this man, or was it merely a reflection of his own vulnerabilities? "Listen," Travis said as they rushed through the corridor. "If this works, it could mean a lot, not just for the company, but for you too. A chance for a new start, possibly." A part of him dared to hope that today could be a diversion from irrelevance, a reclamation of purpose. "No pressure, right?" Daniel replied, attempting to inject humor into the gravity-laden atmosphere. But beneath the bravado, he fought inner demons of self-doubt and lived to unearth the belief that thrummed within his core. Their paths might have diverged, but as they crossed this threshold into the world of code and error messages, each man grappled not just with fixing Vortex's technical lightning storm, but also with reimagining their identities in a world that often diminished them. But the question lingered. When the storm subsided, could Daniel's insight truly turn the tide, or would it all end in dust? With the countdown racing, they stepped into the developer's war room, where chaos thrummed like a heartbeat, and the real battle of identities was about to begin. The dimly lit developer's war room pulsed with frenetic energy, monitors flashing error messages and spreadsheets that seemed to multiply each moment. Daniel could feel the oppressive weight of expectation, adrenaline coursing through him like electricity. A small part of him had always longed for this, a place where his thoughts could translate into action, where logic reigned supreme. Yet here, among sleek desks cluttered with technology, he felt more like an intruder, the janitor among titans. "All right, everyone, listen up," Travis called, his voice cutting through the cacophony. He gestured towards Daniel, who stood awkwardly, feeling the acute focus shift to him like a searchlight. "This is Daniel. He believes he found something crucial in our system architecture. Let's hear him out." The developers exchanged skeptical glances. Daniel's heart raced, teetering between self-assuredness and the gnawing fear of being ridiculed. He cleared his throat, forcing himself to step forward, away from the shadow. "Thank you for considering me," he started, anxiety nudging every word. "I worked with code before I started at Vortex. I noticed an inconsistency surrounding the data processing algorithms, something that could be triggering these errors. It misdirects inputs from clients, and the outcomes are unpredictable." A murmur rippled through the group, confusion mingled with intrigue. Did they believe him? Each face carried the weight of professionalism, yet hidden behind that veneer were souls shaped by their successes and failures. "That sounds different from what we've been investigating," one developer scoffed, his arms crossed over his chest, though there was an unmistakable shadow of interest behind his eyes. "Perhaps," Daniel pressed, a subtle fire igniting within. "But if you check the subroutine logs, you'll find the discrepancies, particularly around how binary data is parsed. It's a root cause we've overlooked." Travis motioned towards the nearest monitor. "Look into it. If what Daniel says is true, this could be the breakthrough we've been looking for." With a wave of approval from Travis, the developers pivoted, diving into lines of code with renewed intensity. Daniel felt the pulse of connection forming, as if threads of understanding were weaving between them. They began typing furiously, collaborating with growing urgency. Standing back, Daniel took a steadying breath, amazed by how swiftly the energy of the room shifted. His knowledge, once gathering dust, now sparked curiosity and dialogue among individuals he once imagined were infallible. Each passing microsecond felt monumental, a ticking clock of change. But beneath his excitement lay a gnawing unease. The clock also represented his fear. What if he was wrong? What if this effort led to nothing?
Minutes turned into what felt like hours. The atmosphere thickened with buzz of realization. One developer pointed enthusiastically to the screen. "He's right. Look at this spike in error rates coinciding with our code update from last month." A rising tide of astonishment swept across the room, forces of ambition clashing with the possible shame of being wrong. As the tension mounted, one voice rose above the rest. "We need to roll this back immediately." Travis turned to Daniel, eyes gleaming with possibility. "Do you know how to execute the rollback?" Daniel hesitated, recalling the myriad tasks he had been relegated to in the past. What if those skill sets were insufficient now? I think so," he replied, a mere thread of conviction carrying the weight of his response. Every heartbeat thumped louder, amplifying the internal battle. He envisioned himself once more pushing brooms and emptying trash, always on the fringes, unseen. This moment was his opportunity to shed that identity, but it demanded a leap. Could he become the orchestrator, guiding a team of experts and executing a solution? "Do it," urged Travis. With trembling fingers, Daniel stepped to the keyboard. The gravity of his actions pressed upon him. The world outside this room now felt remote, like a fading memory. All that mattered were the lines of code before him, the solution to save the company, and perhaps to elevate him beyond those fluorescent-lit hallways. As Daniel began to type, adrenaline surged through him. The stakes had never been higher. If this rolled back smoothly, lives could change, his included. But in the silence that followed each keystroke, he felt the walls closing in, and the cavernous conflict within him exploded, whispering doubts and endless possibilities. Outcomes loomed on the horizon, wrapped in uncertainty. The threshold between past obscurity and future significance lay bare before him. The moment of truth beckoned, and Daniel prepared to cross it, not just for the company, but for the person he had always yearned to become. And yet, as he made his final adjustment, a new, unexpected challenge echoed in his mind, a shadow of doubt rooted deep, questioning not just the process, but his very place in this narrative. Could he overcome the demons of self-doubt that threatened to swallow him whole in this pivotal instant? The clatter of keyboards formed a chaotic symphony, each keystroke a note sharp enough to cut through the tension. Daniel's fingers danced on the keys, but he felt as if they were weighted with lead. Each command carried the weight of expectations. His own fears teetered on the precipice of success and failure. The screen flashed ominously, a warning like a mouth ready to swallow him whole. The processor churned through the rollback commands, its rhythm steady but unforgiving. Would it ultimately reject him? Panic thrummed beneath his skin, the familiar specter of doubt grappling for dominance.
What if his knowledge wasn't sufficient? What if the developers were right all along, and he was nothing more than a lucky janitor playing with fire? Come on, he muttered under his breath, willing the system to respond with the promised success. It was an ironic twist. Once a behind-the-scenes ghost, now he stood at the frontier of decision-making, each moment stretching thin with consequence. As the progress bar inched forward, Daniel's observations flickered through the past.
Every tidbit of information picked up in silence, every casual conversation overheard in the lounge, every failed project he had witnessed as an underling, all of it poured into this singular moment. He had always been observant, marking insights that flew over others' heads. It was a skill he had taken for granted until now, but perhaps this was the moment to leverage that knowledge. "Almost there," he called out, seeking the approval of those around him, but his own voice hushed with uncertainty. Did they believe in him, or were they merely loyally following Travis's lead? With a final keystroke, Daniel executed the command, and everything ground to a halt. The room, buzzing with collective anticipation, tensed. It was all on him now. Would the system yield a benign outcome, or unleash chaos? The seconds stretched, and all vision narrowed down to the screen, the lifeblood of their hopes pulsing in vivid colors. Travis leaned closer, eyes narrowing. "What's it saying?" Daniel's heart raced as he scanned the screen, letters and numbers flickering like fleeting thoughts. He had read these before, but now the context felt monumental. Reality was liquid, and all he could do was respond. A cascade of logs erupted, highlighting a stringently clear rollback. The developers erupted into exclamations, scattering Daniel's earlier doubts momentarily. "It worked! We have green lights everywhere!" As a collective sigh of relief washed over the team, a wave of exhilaration surged through Daniel. Triumph hit him with the force of a sledgehammer, yet it didn't fully suppress the residual tremors of self-doubt. Had it truly been his skills that facilitated this victory, or was it sheer luck? This question loomed large, a specter refusing to be silenced. "Nice work, Daniel," Travis clapped him on the back, dragging him from introspection. "You've done it." The recognition felt foreign, tinged with an intoxicating mix of achievement and lingering insecurities. In that moment, he realized that even in triumph, doubt does not simply evaporate, it morphs. Would this be the catalyst for deeper inquiries into his own professional capacity, or would he revert to the familiar role of observer? "I wouldn't have spotted it without the team's collective insights," Daniel replied, his voice a tad shaky, but genuine. It was vital to uphold the shared nature of the victory, yet something deep within him stirred, whispering the strength of self-affirmation.
He could feel the shift in perspective surfacing. His contributions mattered. This was no fluke. He had proven his place among self-proclaimed titans. Perhaps there lay more within him still, uncharted territories of skill and potential waiting to be explored. The buzzing room filled with the developers' animated discussions, a wall of noise muffling his thoughts. Suddenly, a pragmatic concern cut through his exhilaration like a sharp blade. What's next? Daniel wondered, feeling an unease creep back. Tune-ups and patches would only last for so long. Complications were inevitable in tech. The world barely paused to breathe, and yet, where would he stand when the next crisis arose? Inside him, doubts began to spiral anew. Would another chance arise, and would he still measure up? Or would circumstances spiral beyond his grasp? The thrill of victory faded, darkening into an ambiguous road ahead. And with that, a vision arose. His decisions would be redefined, reconnecting him with himself and this newfound capability. But the lingering questions gnawed at him still. They were seeds planted deep within his consciousness, poised to grow into daunting dilemmas. Perhaps within these quiet fears, a greater opportunity lingered. The challenge was not just about navigating expectations, but confronting his fears directly. As the developers cheered, ready for their next battle, Daniel faced the most profound journey of all, a confrontation not with an external adversary, but with the raw essence of self-doubt that clung to him. What lay ahead was not simply about coding and tech solutions. It was about defining who he truly was, and what path he would forge in vulnerability. In the midst of clinking coffee cups and shared laughter, a new fear, a whispering challenge, began to take shape. Could he embrace the identity of a leader and move beyond self-sabotage, or would he be the ghost in the machine once more? The chatter around the room faded into a dull hum as Daniel stepped away from the celebratory chaos, his pulse still throbbing in his ears. As he wandered toward the window, he focused on the dancing shadows cast by the midday sun, each flicker serving as a metaphor for the uncertain path unfurling before him. He felt alive, yet paralyzed by a yearning for clarity. An awareness began to settle in his gut, that this victory was merely the tip of an iceberg he had yet to explore.
Outside, the city buzzed with the rhythm of industry and ambition. Where would he fit into that pulse now? The intrinsic responsibility of leadership loomed like an insurmountable cliff, daunting and thrilling. Conversations echoed snippets of their future projects. Insights he once brushed aside now stirred in his consciousness, demanding to be acknowledged. Daniel had witnessed the intricate dance of technology and human ingenuity, but only as an observer. Could he make the leap to become a partner in that dance?
He stepped back, feeling a rush of determination submerge his previous hesitations. Perhaps he could reject the notion that he had been lucky, redefine his contributions, and turn self-doubt into fuel for professional growth. As if the room's exuberance was shared between his ears, his thoughts screamed in defiance. "You belong here, Daniel." Tension coiled in his stomach as he returned to the thrumming heart of the workspace. He noted the developers' gleeful banter, their confidence radiating in waves. Among them, Travis spoke with certainty. Had he always been this charismatic? Was it natural for others to command such control? Daniel's internal gauge tipped with frustration, but also a flicker of resolve surged. He was tired of feeling like a spectator. Action was necessary. "All right, team," Travis's voice broke through his musings. "Let's consolidate this victory by prepping for our next sprint. Ideas?" Daniel's heart raced at the prospect, fighting against the instinct to stay silent. The memories of past concepts began to dance through his mind, inspirations not fully realized in the lull of his self-doubt. Abruptly, he raised his hand, feeling the heat of eyes upon him, hesitant yet hungry for participation. "What if we explore integrating more adaptive algorithms? The previous rollback was pure luck, but perhaps we can design a systematic approach to preemptively identify these risks," Daniel proposed, his voice steady, surprise bubbling beneath his confidence. A ripple of silence fell, and then supportive nods followed, an unexpected surge of enthusiasm around his words. Travis, taken aback, leaned closer. "That's interesting, Daniel. Adaptive algorithms could streamline our future processes. Can you dive deeper into that this week?" The confirmation sent his heart soaring. However, as the brimming excitement of the moment washed over him, the inner critic, ever present and insidious, slithered back. Would this concept withstand scrutiny? Could he really pull it off? The unease crept in, but some part of him was strangely invigorated by these growing responsibilities. In the aftermath of his suggestion, a wave of clarity washed over him. The role of a leader required not just decisive actions, but also moments of vulnerability, open acknowledgement of setbacks. He did not have to shoulder the burdens alone. Collaboration was essential. "Let's also arrange some brainstorming sessions where we can share ideas openly," Daniel added, the initiative surging from a deepening well of authenticity. "We could encourage each other to think differently, rather than just relying on the usual paths." The idea resonated, the initial bashful murmur growing into a conversation. Each voice contributed layers to his outline, transforming the spark into a blaze of potential. As discussions ebbed and flowed, Daniel began to discern the subtle weight of his new role. The affirmation he sought was not about proving himself right. It was about fostering growth, both for himself and for the team. With each new idea layered into the mix, he felt bolder, less like a ghost, and more like a weaver of possibilities. However, lurking just outside the fringe of their collaborative joy was the understanding that with this empowerment came elevated stakes. Would the team's acceptance bolster his leadership, or would the specter of his past insecurities ruin it all? As the meeting drew to a close, one thought ignited a compelling urgency within him. The true test lay in transforming these ideas into tangible results. He had opened a door, but now he would have to step over the threshold and face the unforeseen challenges beyond. It was time to stop being the ghost and show the world the shadows would not define him any longer. What remained unanswered was how he would navigate the unpredictable waters ahead. What if it wasn't just about algorithms or teamwork, but about confronting the impending doubts and the real test, the judgments of those who once looked down on him? The moment for action was nigh, and in this darkly lit room, Daniel felt the flicker of determination ignite a new path. The true battle had just begun. Daniel awoke the next morning with a knot in his stomach, an electric mix of excitement and anxiety swirling within him. The sun glared through the blinds, slicing streams of light into his otherwise dim apartment. He blinked against the brightness and squinted at the clock. Time seemed to move slower as he prepared for the day ahead. The task of deepening his adaptive algorithms proposal loomed large in his mind, filling him with both resolve and dread. As he sipped his coffee, memories of yesterday's meeting replayed in his mind, the approving nods, the way Travis had leaned in, intrigued. That affirmation felt intoxicating yet fragile,
like the morning fog that could dissipate with the slightest breeze. Daniel recognized that this was a pivotal moment. He was no longer merely a cog in the machine, but a potential influencer of its wheels. Still, lurking beneath his ambition was a haunting thought. Could he truly execute this vision? Arriving at the office, the atmosphere thrummed with a renewed energy, the buzz of effort chasing creative brilliance. Teams were already deep into brainstorming sessions, fervently bouncing ideas off one another. Daniel felt that familiar rush of determination mingled with fear as he entered the workspace. It was exhilarating to feel the heartbeat of innovation, yet unsettling to sense that he was still on the periphery, watching rather than diving in headfirst. He spotted Travis in conversation with a few developers, their animated chatter punctuated with laughter. A flicker of jealousy sparked within him. Would those bonds ever be within his reach, or was he condemned to dance around the edges, a wallflower amidst vibrant blooms?
Forcing himself to breathe, he stepped toward them, determination fueling his stride, the vision of his proposal glimmering in his mind. "Hey, can I join?" he asked, voice steadier than he felt. "Of course," Travis beamed, shifting slightly to include him in the circle. Taking a seat, Daniel summoned the confidence to present his ideas. "I've been thinking, we could run simulated tests on the algorithms to refine their adaptability even more before applying them to the real-time system. It will give us a safety net while we implement the changes." Travis nodded, listening intently, while others chimed in, eager to flesh out this concept. As the conversation grew, Daniel felt the rush of inclusion. His ideas were not only welcomed, they were essential. But as discussions unfolded, a nagging uncertainty crept back in, whispering doubts about his competence. What if his tests didn't yield the expected results? What if the team became disillusioned with his leadership? Just as quickly, a counterthought burst forth. This was the learning process he had to embrace. Determined not to spiral into self-doubt, he redirected the conversation. "What if we also benchmark our algorithms against established ones? We could identify gaps and really refine our approach," he suggested, noticing the sudden engagement in their eyes. "That's a solid plan," a developer, Mira, replied enthusiastically. "We can allocate some time next week for parallel testing." With every affirmation, he could feel the cracks in his confidence bridge, but one fact remained: he still felt incomplete. Beyond algorithms and testing, a more disruptive challenge was brewing on the horizon, the personal confrontation with those old judgments and insecurities that gnawed at him. The moment of truth continued to loom, overshadowing even the most optimistic projections. As the meeting concluded, Daniel gathered his notes, heart swelling with newfound purpose. There was a palpable shift. He recognized the responsibility of not just leading projects, but cultivating an environment where ideas could flourish without the fear of failure. Walking to his workstation, he could almost taste the ambitious goals they were forming, yet he couldn't shake the apprehension gnawing his stomach. Would he remain resolute when facing his biggest challenge, the judgment of his capabilities from a past he never quite escaped? Suddenly, his phone buzzed, pulling him from his spiraling thoughts, a notification from a group chat with friends. They had plans for the weekend, a night out at a local venue. The invitation dangled in front of him, a possible reprieve from his burgeoning responsibilities. But what if he used that time to brainstorm and refine his ideas instead? As much as he craved connection, Daniel realized he was standing on the precipice of a new chapter, not just for the project, but for himself. What path would he choose? The pull of his old lifestyle or the weight of his burgeoning ambitions?
In the silence that followed, it dawned on him. The real game changer would be how he chose to confront his inner demons, shaping the leader he wished to become. He was teetering on the edge. The leap was his to make. The decision hung in the air, setting the stage for a test of will. Would he dive deeper into his potential or dissolve into the comfort of old habits? Daniel sat at his workstation, fingers hovering over the keyboard. The vibrant chatter around him faded into a distant hum as he wrestled with his decision. The glimmering ambition he felt just moments ago now battled with an overpowering wave of uncertainty. Choosing to indulge with friends or to dig deep into the tasks at hand felt like a fork in the road, each path promising vastly different outcomes. With resolve, he turned off his phone, shutting out distractions, and focused on the proposal. He reopened his documents, immersing himself in the algorithms he had been developing. Each line of code felt like a thread in his overarching tapestry of innovation, weaving together something that could redefine their processes. He merited the space to fail, to learn, and to explore. Yet, as he crafted his plans, a sense of dread loomed large. This project was no longer merely an academic exercise. It bore his fingerprints, his vision. The weight of potential critique from Travis and the team gnawed at him. His hands trembled slightly, and he paused, inhaling deeply. How to confront this disquieting specter of judgment?
It resided not just in others' opinions, but within him, echoing memories of past failures and doubts. "You've got to stop letting fear dictate your choices," he muttered to himself, reinforcing his inner monologue. That same ache for connection, that sensation of wanting to belong, fought with his escalating ambition. Were these emotions the Achilles heel that could undermine his aspirations? "Focus on the task," he urged, staring back at the screen. He started to write notes, methods for simulating tests, identifying benchmarks, and incorporating feedback loops. Ideas flowed more freely now, forging a protective barrier against his insecurities. Every stroke of the keyboard became a declaration of intention. The algorithms began to take shape, and with each virtual layer constructed, Daniel felt a sense of mastery growing within him. As he analyzed the existing frameworks, he considered how they could optimize existing data processing. There was a profound satisfaction in problem solving, such as identifying where adaptive algorithms could offer genuine innovations. And then it hit him, a potential avenue for expansion. If he could intertwine user feedback into the adaptive processes, allowing the algorithms to evolve through real-world interaction, he could bridge the gap between theoretical projections and practical applications. Rushing to capture his revelation, Daniel jotted down notes, and energy surged through him. This was it.
The tidal wave of uncertainty had begun to recede, replaced by clarity. The concept of integrating user experience could transform their project from a rigid base into a participatory framework. In that moment, he made a pivotal decision. He would present this idea at the next team meeting. This was his chance not only to shift perception regarding his ideas, but also to ignite genuine enthusiasm in his colleagues. He envisioned Travis's gaze. Anticipation sizzled in the air as he rendered their collective vision tangible. Time blurred as hours slipped away. Eventually, Daniel leaned back in his chair, drained but electrified. He had shaped an identity through this process, not as a hesitant participant, but as an architect of change, prepared to lead. Yet beneath the surface of his excitement lurked a shadow. The fear of vulnerability still haunted him. He would have to articulate this vision clearly, boldly, and conclusively, without retreating into self-doubt. The retreat from the deep pit of anxiety at this moment felt hard-won, but it was fleeting. What if his idea was poorly received? What if the team found fault in him rather than the concept? Anxiety wormed its way back into his thoughts. But stepping into this challenge meant finding strength in vulnerability. Unlike before, he now understood the necessity of confronting not just the ideas, but also the criticism that could come with them. As he began to pack up for the day, a sudden realization struck him. He could pave the way for a collaborative workshop, allowing the team to contribute insights directly into the algorithm developments instead of working in isolation. This would promote ownership and perhaps ease the dread of disseminating his ideas alone. He sent a quick email to Travis, proposing this session for next week. Then, as he closed his laptop, he felt a weight lift. This was the bridge between integration and leadership. The leap he was faced with earlier had taken on new dimensions. Walking to the exit, he felt a combination of nerves and excitement. Possibilities shimmered in his mind. The echoing doubts remained. Yet today, he had taken purposeful steps forward. Every choice counted. Now, as he stood outside, a brisk wind ruffled his hair, mirroring the tempests of uncertainty still swirling within. Yet he equally felt a surge of hope brought on by the thrill of taking ownership. Would he seize this momentum in the coming presentation, smoothing the creases of uncertainty with confidence, or would the shadows from his past once again threaten this new foundation he was constructing? The tension of the impending moment wrapped around him like a cloak, urging him to remain steadfast in his new path. The morning of the team meeting arrived, and Daniel's stomach churned with anxiety. The proposal he had polished over the week felt like both a beacon of hope and a ticking time bomb. He arrived at the office early, seeking solace in the quiet before the storm. Each hour felt heavily pregnant with possibility. As he set up his laptop in the conference room, he could not shake the staccato rhythm of his heartbeat. The room gradually filled, each familiar face sharpening his focus. He exchanged polite nods with colleagues, whose casual conversations seemed to amplify the uncertainty gnawing at him. When Travis entered, the electricity of expectation filled the air. The way Travis commanded the room with his mere presence triggered a deep-seated need within Daniel, the desire to be seen as an equal. "Let's get started," Travis declared, glancing at Daniel as if silently urging him to take center stage. Suddenly, it felt as though the walls were closing in. Daniel swallowed hard, reminding himself that he was prepared. He took a deep breath, feeling the textures of the moment, a blend of trepidation and the promising scent of opportunity. He initiated the presentation, articulating his insights methodically. The words flowed, borne on a current of adrenaline, each point carefully defining the interplay of user feedback mechanisms with their algorithms. Lively images of collaborative workshops danced in his mind, where peers shaped innovations together. Yet with each passing slide, doubt rushed in, whispering insidious worries. What if they disagreed? What if they saw only flaws? As he laid out the potential impact of the integration, he noticed a flicker in Travis's eyes, a nuance of intrigue. For a moment, hope flickered within Daniel. Perhaps he was breaking through. As questions began to flow from his teammates, he engaged eagerly, ready to defend his vision. But then a stark question cut through the discourse. What if users don't understand the system well enough to provide valuable feedback? Aren't we risking our project on assumptions? It was their critical analyst, Maya, and her words landed heavily among the team. Great point, Daniel replied, attempting to mask the tremor in his voice. That's why an iterative process where we guide users is essential. We can create training sessions to educate them on our platform before implementation. Their input won't just be feedback, it will be informed and constructive. The discussion oscillated between engagement and skepticism. Lines of inquiry sharpened under the scrutiny of the team. Daniel found himself on the defensive. The challenge was no longer just his presentation, but an entire philosophical battle. For every point he made, a counterpoint emerged, etching deeper lines of doubt into his mind. Each query from the team felt like layers stripped away from his confidence. But then, a surprising revelation sparked in his mind. Rather than merely defending his proposal, Daniel pivoted. What if we turn today's meeting into a brainstorming session? Each of you has experience that can guide this further. Let's break into small groups and explore how users' perspectives might work with your existing feedback methods.
The suggestion surprised even him, but there it was, a collaborative spirit pushing past his fears. He saw heads nodding, and Travis leaned back, arms crossed but with a thoughtful expression. As the room split into smaller discussions, Daniel immersed himself in the exchanges. Ideas erupted, bouncing between teammates like electricity. As he moved from group to group, he felt an uncommon sense of belonging, a clarity fueled by collaboration rather than solitary innovation. Just as he began to feel the tide shift, an unsettling thought cut through the camaraderie. What if this session didn't yield the insights they desperately needed? When the time came to reconvene, would the synergy be enough to propel his idea into actionable strategies? As they reassembled, Daniel's heart raced with uncertainty. Each team member contributed valuable insights, which formed a mosaic of a broader vision, but would it suffice? Would he emerge a leader, or would self-doubt drown him in a tide of collective responsibility? The moment to consolidate learning was at hand. As Daniel prepared to synthesize the thoughts shared, he felt the undercurrent of tension rising again. Had he truly facilitated a breakthrough, or had he merely masked the inadequacies that still lingered beneath the surface? With the spotlight now back on him, he stood tall, determined to confront both the opportunity and the fear that accompanied it. Would this collaborative spirit eradicate the shadows of self-doubt, or was he still one misstep away from unraveling? The stakes felt higher than ever, the burden heavier, but he was ready to let them see the true depth of his vision. As he looked out at his team, a question loomed large. With every decision made, along with the weight of collaboration, was he creating a path forward, or merely delaying the inevitable unraveling of his confidence? As Daniel spoke, the collective breath of the room seemed to hold precariously in tandem with the beat of his heart. The atmosphere crackled, not just with anxiety, but with potential. He had diverged from a solely defensive position into one that celebrated exploration. Yet now, before taking the leap, he hesitated. "Okay, everyone, let's consolidate our findings," he began, his voice steadier than he felt. The weight of expectation pressed against him, yet an electric current of inspiration danced in the air. "What patterns emerged in your discussions?" He scanned the group, hoping to draw on their shared energy. Tara, the developer, leaned forward, excitement radiating from her. "One of the key things we discussed is the importance of onboarding. If we design our feedback process during user training, we can guide them through their first experiences." "Yes, excellent," Daniel exclaimed, encouraged by her enthusiasm. More voices chimed in, their previously skeptical questions morphing into constructive ideas. Each passing moment elevated Daniel's confidence, reinforcing the realization that collaboration could yield ideas richer than those he could conjure alone. Building on that, we could create user scenarios based on common pain points, Maya interjected, a spark igniting in her eyes. It would help us understand how users interact with the system from the get-go. Daniel clung to that moment, his previous doubts countered by a burgeoning sense of direction. Together, they were sculpting a sharper vision. As contributions piled up, he captured the insights in real time, his fingers flying over the keyboard. He felt invigorated, the tension dissolving into an exhilarating buzz of problem-solving, though remnants of self-doubt whispered from the edges. "What if we test those scenarios in a live environment?" Lucy suggested, her analytical mind working swiftly. "It could provide immediate feedback and allow us to iterate on the fly." His heart fluttered with renewed purpose, almost envisioning their project morphing into something tangible and dynamic. Yes, live testing would put our theories to the test in real time. It would make our approach feel alive and responsive. But as the room buzzed with excitement, a darker thought flickered in his mind. What if, despite all this creativity, they couldn't deliver the project in the end? What if someone upstairs decided their ideas lacked substance or rigor? The dread of disappointing his team loomed, and he caught himself grappling with inevitable fears. "All right, let's put together an action plan tomorrow," he forced himself to say, trying to sound confident. "I'll outline an agenda for how we can operationalize these ideas and take feedback protocols to the next level." The supportive nods from his colleagues reassured him. The transformation from anxiety to clarity felt monumental. Yet, as he wrapped up the session, a nagging shadow remained. Would this group commitment lead to tangible outcomes, or was it a temporary high masking deeper concerns regarding his leadership ability? Daniel couldn't shake that recurring question. Did the team's faith mean they held true belief in his vision, or was it a bandwagon of fleeting hope? As the meeting adjourned, the conversations of potential echoed through the room, but Daniel was left reckoning with something more profound. Could he deliver on the uncharted territories they had just begun to explore? Could he be critical enough to uphold their faith as the project developed? Looking around at his team, the spark in their eyes mirroring his own fear, he resolved to take ownership. Emerging as a consensus-driven leader would mean confronting not only the project's demands, but also the vulnerabilities that chilled him to the core. Daniel stepped out of the conference room, the weight of responsibility settling into his bones. He was determined to prove to himself and to his team that he could lead them through this complex maze of innovation. As he prepared to return to his desk, a familiar yet unshakable voice in his mind taunted him. What if the path ahead turned into a maze of failure? What would that do to not only his vision, but the thriving camaraderie they had just begun to establish? The answers were yet to come, but he sensed an impending decision looming on the horizon, one that would define his growth, or potentially unravel all he had worked for so far. With each passing day, Daniel felt the weight of leadership bearing down, but he also embraced the transformation that came with it. The team began to trust in his vision, because he learned not just to talk, but to listen, truly listen, to the insights gained from those around him. Each exciting brainstorming session honed his ability to refine ideas collectively, while his earlier fears of inadequacy faded into a backdrop overshadowed by collaboration. Weeks passed since their groundbreaking meeting, and the adaptive algorithms underwent rigorous testing. Every success marked not just a technical achievement, but also a profound shift within Daniel. He was no longer the invisible janitor, but a vital component of Vortex's lifeblood. The recognition from his peers grew, culminating in an unexpected event, a company-wide presentation where Daniel would showcase the final proposal. The night before the presentation, he tossed restlessly in bed, grappling with old insecurities. What if the feedback was harsh? What if every prior assumption collapsed under scrutiny? Yet within his core, a new foundation sustained him. He had done more than simply lead a project. He had expanded his capabilities, faced his fears, and embraced vulnerability. A quiet strength arose him, compelling him forward. On presentation day, Daniel strolled into the conference room alongside Travis, anxious yet resolute. The buzz of anticipation enveloped the space as colleagues settled in, eyes glimmering with curiosity. Travis opened the floor, then turned to Daniel, gesturing for him to take center stage.
Everyone, I couldn't be prouder of our journey with these algorithms, Daniel began, his voice steady as he acknowledged the supportive energy in the room. Today, I will present our new feedback integration system, one that bridges user experiences with adaptive technology in real time. As he unveiled the slides illustrating their collective achievements and the creative input from each teammate, Daniel felt an electric thrill course through him. He elaborated on the purpose behind the implementation, framing it as a collaborative endeavor rather than a solitary triumph. With every word, he demonstrated not just his professional growth, but the essence of leadership, the ability to elevate others alongside oneself. Questions flew his way, but instead of stumbling, Daniel deftly engaged, showcasing the insights gathered from their earlier brainstorming sessions. The vibe in the room shifted, their skepticism transforming into excitement.
The sense of camaraderie he had cultivated bubbled over. The team felt united in this vision, a symbiotic growth both professionally and personally. At the presentation's conclusion, Daniel glanced around the room, catching sight of colleagues nodding in agreement and moments of genuine pride exchanged between team members. As applause broke out, a sense of fulfillment washed over him. He had not only conquered the fears that once loomed large, but also constructed a solid foundation for his future. Driven by newfound confidence, Daniel made his way to Travis after the presentation. "Thank you for believing in me," he said, sincerity anchoring every word. "I wouldn't have gotten here without your support." Travis smiled back, genuinely impressed. "You've shown us all what you're capable of, Daniel. You've transformed from a janitor into a pivotal asset for this company. It's time everyone knows that." The words pierced through Daniel like sunlight breaking through clouds. It was the acknowledgement he had craved, reaffirming the extensive journey he had undertaken. He wasn't just an observer anymore. He was a player in his own narrative. In the weeks that followed, Daniel's proposal gained traction, eventually garnering attention from upper management. Their algorithm transformed into a new standard for user interaction within their software, and the feedback proved invaluable. Recognition cascaded, rewarding not only the team's collective effort, but solidifying Daniel's established role as a leader. As he stepped out of the office one evening, a sense of serenity enveloped him. He reflected on the lessons learned, how facing adversity opened the door for transformation and elevated collaboration within the team. He no longer feared being seen. He embraced it with solid confidence. Daniel's journey illuminated a powerful truth. True fulfillment didn't come from overcoming fear, but from the courage to embrace it. His achievements transcended the project. They forged his identity into a symbol of resilience and determination. Now he stood at the brink of exciting new projects ahead, leaving behind the janitorial image that once confined him. He was no longer merely Daniel the janitor, but Daniel the innovator, the leader, a title he would wear with pride as he continued to carve his path within Vortex. For those who resonate with this tale of overcoming fear and achieving personal growth, I urge you to take action. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support for stories of personal resilience and transformation. Don't wait even one more second.